Chapter 1, Free at Last. The book opens in November 1960 and Cathy is 15. The remaining Dollenganger siblings are on a bus and headed for Sarasota, Florida, hoping to join the circus and become aerialists. They've survived a mother and grandmother who tried to kill them, and they're finally free from the locked room in Foxworth Hall, but it's not a joyous time. Cathy notes how attractive her brother is, with his long blonde hair that probably makes him look like he belongs in an 80s hairband, and sky blue eyes. He'll be 18 that month, and Cathy can't miss an opportunity to remind us of how much he resembles their dead father, who's looking down on them right now from Mount Olympus, or wherever saintly fathers go when they die. Chris is strumming Oh Susanna on the guitar, probably sounding like that guy on American Idol who thinks he's got talent before Simon rudely, but correctly, puts him in his place. Cathy finds it hard to look at him. This is just a hunch, but I suspect it's most likely because he reminds her of 3 years of torture and false imprisonment, 2 weeks of starvation, a particularly shameful night in early September 1960 that they must never speak of again, and the brother Corey, who is no longer around because their mother killed him. So Chris and Cathy are traumatized, but it's little Carrie who bears the most visible scars. She looks like she's a wizened old toddler with big haunted eyes, even though she's actually 8. Cathy could have just taken the evidence of their mother trying to murder her to the authorities and thrown herself at their mercy, but she decided Florida and the unknown was the safer option. That doesn't mean she isn't still praying for karma to burn Mama's and Foxworth Hall while it's at it. Cathy notes that a quote-unquote huge black lady boards the bus just before they cross the Virginia-North Carolina state line. Her name, we will soon learn, is Henrietta, or Henny, Beach, and she works as a housekeeper and cook for a Dr. Paul Sheffield who lives in Claremont, South Carolina. I have no idea what the hell Henny was doing all the way in Virginia waiting on the side of the interstate. Maybe she was visiting family, but about 2 minutes after she hops the bus in Virginia, they're suddenly in South Carolina, and that's when Carrie turns into Reagan from The Exorcist, spewing chunks all over the place. Cathy and Chris frantically clean up the mess and then try to stuff the soiled napkins out the window or in the seat cracks before the bus driver bawls them out. So they're forced to use their Polaroid case to hide the napkins instead. Henny comes to their rescue when one of the men on the bus gets nasty. Henny isn't deaf, but she is mute, and she can only communicate through sign language and written notes. The bus driver is like, of course this has to happen on a Sunday, of all days for something like this to happen. Still, Henny manages to convince him to drive out to some residential neighborhood and drop her and the kids off in front of the house of her quote-unquote doctor son, Paul Sheffield. Paul is taking a little Sunday siesta on his veranda. Henny leaves the kids to fend for themselves while she goes inside to get dinner started. Last time Cathy stumbled upon a slumbering man, it was that time she snuck downstairs to burglarize her mother's room and ended up kissing her stepfather in his sleep instead. And somehow or other, this spiraled into Chris yelling at her and raping her on a dirty mattress. So, disturbing dark-haired men as they sleep blissfully in a chair. Danger zone. Cathy parrots back the bus driver's words to her brother. It's Sunday, and maybe the doctor doesn't need to be inconvenienced with their medical crisis on this day of all days. But Chris is like, well, he shouldn't have become a doctor then. They awaken Dr. Sheffield, and he spends an inordinate amount of time making sure to Cathy with his eyes, despite the fact that she's 15, and I picture her bangs looking like Courtney Cox Arquette's in Scream 3. He eventually comes to his senses and ushers the children into his private home office, where he examines Carrie and determines that she is very sick, but the cause of that sickness eludes him, because I highly doubt his checklist of possible ailments includes consumption of poisoned donuts. He'd like to take her to the hospital for more testing. Somehow, Cathy forgot that her clothes were splattered with puke. She's like, gee, why do I feel so wet and gross? And then she remembers, oh right, I'm covered in the contents of my sister's stomach. So she takes a moment to slip out of her top layer of clothing. Luckily, she's wearing multiple layers, so this isn't the strip show the doctor seems to hope it will be. He's like, what the hell? Is this how you always dress? And she's like, only when I'm on the run and my luggage is loaded down with items I fully intend to hawk for cash. Chris is sitting next to her, probably thinking, can I hawk my blabbermouth sister for cash? But Cathy's 100% confident their secrets are safe with this doctor she's known for maybe 20 minutes tops. One of the perks of having a neglectful of a mother who doesn't want to let on that she's secretly trying to kill you is that she overcompensates by buying you luxury watches. So Paul just naturally assumes they're spoiled rich kids who chose starvation over eating their vegetables. Chris says they're orphans, but don't worry about the cost of a hospital stay. They're good for it. Then he finds out what he can expect a 2-week stay at a hospital to cost him, and he's like, well, sure. I guess I underestimated the price of getting sick in the U.S. Meanwhile, Paul is standing there counting down the seconds until their parents' miraculous resurrection. But Chris is like, ha, nice try. Still orphans. Paul decides to go for the nice cop approach. He's their friend. Pretend this office is Vegas. Their secrets will die here. When that doesn't work, he's like, look, if you don't start spilling some tea, you can kiss your younger sister goodbye. Hopefully those Swiss watches will pull in enough money to save her ass before it's too late. Chris is like, so be it. He doesn't want their mother to look bad. Yeah, maybe the woman tried to poison them, but hey, we've all got our flaws, right? Cathy, on the other hand, has never been one to keep her feelings in, and all of their state secrets come flooding out of her. She starts at the beginning. By the time she's halfway into their story, she's still only at the part where the siblings found out their father was a pile of ash on the highway. This could take a while. But I suppose it's one way to get in all the backstory for new readers. Cathy makes sure to let Paul know it was her idea to run. If it was up to Chrissy boy over here, they'd still be stuck at Foxworth Hall. Cathy spills way too much tea all at once. Girl, you've got to ration that, sure. She leaves out Corey's existence, though she does mention the arsenic-laced donuts. They don't want to tell their story to the cops, she says, because they don't want the publicity or to be separated from each other. Even though her brother's an asshole, she kind of miss him if he wasn't around. At this point, Chris is probably thinking, well, I give up. Do you need our mother's maiden name? What about our social security numbers and the fetus of our firstborn child to keep in a jar on your desk? More on that later. He tells Paul to just do what he's got to do. The doctor offers them a pretty sweet deal. Their plan to be trapeze artists sucks. And Cathy has to admit, now that they are no longer living in their little attic bubble, that it was a sure idea. So why don't they come live with this complete stranger for the time being, so long as Chris tends to the gardens and Cathy cooks the meals? Chris doesn't want Dr. Paul's pity, but Cathy thinks her brother's being stupid again, and so Chris finally relents. Paul is like, now don't go thinking I'm doing you a favor. This here is a quote-unquote business arrangement. Sure it is, Paul. Strictly business, huh? Well, all right then.
Toxic love, look how you make me happy. You take a hold of me. You take a hold of wish I could give you up, but you're my new favorite drug. Enter into my blood, run with my toxic love. Look how you make me happy. Bye.